You know, millions of us make sure to get our annual physical to assess our health. But do you also do an annual checkup to make sure your fiscal health is A-OK and improving as you age? Richmond CPA Phil Umansky is here with what you need to know to make sure that you're on track as you age. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Good
Glad to be here.
We talk about physical health. Now we're going to talk about fiscal health. So financially, we want to make sure that we're on track.
Absolutely. You know, I just went to the doctor 2 weeks ago, and some of the measurements they take are your blood pressure, they take your cholesterol level, your weight. And so those are sort of norms or maybe averages that we look at to determine whether we're in good physical health. Well, we're going to do the same thing with financial health. And a lot of people sometimes don't really know how they compare with a large sample in this country. So we're going to present some numbers here.
We're going to talk about the details, but what are the fiscal benchmarks that we're looking at?
Okay, so there are many, but I just wanted to pull out three because of the limited time that we have on the show. So we're going to talk about each of those, and one of the good things is I've come up with some national averages, or really medians, to help on this. So we'll talk about these.
Okay, where do we start?
All right, so the first one is your savings. Your savings really translate into your investments. So financial planners advocate 10 to 15% of your income going into savings. Now, admittedly, that can be difficult for some young people. It could actually be difficult for everybody. But it is something that you do. Now, obviously, what are you saving for? You're saving for retirement. That's probably one of the most important, but also for college savings, maybe for a home. So the only way you can really purchase those things is really to save some money, and the only way you can retire, unless your entire income is going to be Social Security, is to build up a retirement fund.
Now, some people think, you know, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I can barely pay my bills. How am I going to save, you know, 10, 20% of my income? So how do you do that? I know you have to make some sacrifices.
You do have to make some sacrifices, and you also need to look at your priorities. And sometimes maybe you need to get a job that brings in more income. But really, you need to try to do it. Now, a lot of people will say, I can't save 10 or 15%. Well, try to save something. Something is better than nothing.
So you got to start somewhere. The other thing you talked about is savings and then investments. Investments are very important because that can help build the savings.
Absolutely. Now, the interesting thing about investments and savings, I want to give you sort of an average here. The Economic Policy Institute in 2013 said the median retirement savings, this is just for retirement, for people in the 56 to 61 age group is $17,000. That means 50% of the families are above that, 50% are below. Do you think that's a lot of money? That's not a lot of money.
It is when it's sitting in a savings account, but when you're talking about having to live on that, that's not a lot of money. I mean, most people will make more than $17,000 in a year, and if you're retired, you've got a lot of years ahead of you.
Absolutely. You're not going to be getting much interest on the 17%. Now, in terms of your investments, a lot of people ask me, well, how much should I really be making on my investments? And it sort of depends on what you're investing in. So I wanted to give one number, and that's for stocks. A lot of people invest in stocks because they tend to go up in value. If you're investing just in stocks, and I wouldn't advocate this, the average return from 1861 to 2016 is 9%. Okay? So if your portfolio of stocks is doing above 9%, then you're good. And this is over long periods of time. But also you want to invest maybe in some safer securities that maybe earn a return of 3 or 4%. They don't necessarily go up or down in value as much, so they're a little bit more risk-free.
And 9% sounds like a lot when you're talking about a savings account, but when you're talking about an investment account, it doesn't sound like a lot. But again, you're talking long-range savings
long periods of time, and that's the magic of compound interest. Then the other thing is our net worth. Now, a lot of people think, well, what is net worth? So I'm going to give you some examples here. It's all your assets, the value of all your assets. The major assets for most people is their house, but they do have some investments. And then you subtract all the debts that you have. So examples of debts would be student loans, credit card, the mortgage on your house, etc. So I want to give your viewers a sort of a figure on this. The median net worth as of 2013, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, is $80,039.
Now, is that per person or is that per family?
Per family.
Okay.
Per family.
So that's even less than you would think it is.
That is less. Now, the reason they do a median as opposed to an average is if you skewed it, it'd be skewed because you got, you know, people like Bill Gates, $80 billion.
Right.
So $80,000 in net worth is not a lot of money either, not a lot of resources. So, you know, even though we're the wealthiest country, people really do need in this country to improve their savings. They need to improve their investments. and they need to obviously save more, because savings is really the engine that produces your net worth and also increases your investments.
Is the lower net worth because we've got more debt than we have assets?
Absolutely. Well, it doesn't mean you have more debt than assets. It just means your assets.
But I'm just saying, you know, in the scheme of things, we may have things, but then we're carrying a lot of debt as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have $1 million of assets and you have $950,000 of liabilities, your net worth is only $50,000.
That's not very good.
No, that's not very good. So the point is, the reason we bring these up is a lot of people want to compare themselves to others, and that is important to an extent. What are other people doing? Am I above or below the norm in terms of other people?
Trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Trying to keep up with the Joneses. And the last thing that I want to talk about is, how do you relate to money? You know, there's a lot of people that may not have a great net worth, may not have much in savings, but they're happy. And that's really the most important thing, because if you're happy and you're able to at least meet your needs, you could be very sort of rich in terms of your spirituality or your happiness in general.
In the scheme of things, that's more important.
In the scheme of things. And there are a lot of wealthy people that are not happy.
I'd like to try it out and see how I do.
I would too, exactly.
Thanks,
exactly.
Phil. Phil Umansky joining us today. For more information on building your financial health, we'll put a link on our show website by early this afternoon. Just go to WTVR.com/VTM.